In this video, we're going to give you an example of a list, but instead of data type of string, we're going to use a number as the data type for it. So I've already created a blank file, and I just called this one numbered list. I made sure my using system.collections.generic is up here, and now I'm going to work inside of my main again. So we are right here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a list. So remember, it's the capital list to start with. Then we have an open and closing caret. Inside of the caret, we have to have the data type. And for this list, I'm going to make it a double. Okay, so we're going to be doubles, which is numbers that allow decimal places, but it's not going to be decimal data type because we use that for money. So we're going to call this one, it doesn't really matter, we can call it test. Test list. We're going to set equal to the keyword of new to initialize a new list. We need to say what list, so a list, open closing caret with a double inside of it. Then an open and closing parentheses and a semicolon. Now remember, this will create a blank list. Then we can go ahead and use the .add if we want to, or we can just put curly braces after this as well. So for this example, I'm just going to put curly braces because it's going to be a little bit quicker. And inside of here, we can put some numbers. So I'm going to put 4.5 and then a comma. Let's put 6.7. How about 8.9? Get what I'm doing? Maybe a 1.2. Let's put a couple more, 2.3, and maybe a 3.4. Oh, actually, let me do a 3.4. There we go. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers inside of my double list. Now, if I wanted to go through them, say in a loop or something like that, my best bet is going to be a for loop to cycle through the list. All right, so same thing like we did in the other videos, we're going to write the basics of a for loop. So for open closing parentheses, open closing curly braces, and split those apart. Inside of the parentheses here, we're going to start by initializing a variable, so int I. I'm going to set it equal to 0, because remember 0 is the first index right here. Now we're going to put a semicolon. Then this is the test, so I want it to go as long as there's stuff left in the roster. So that is going to be I less than the name of the actual list. So test list dot count. Oops. There we go. Then we have a semicolon, and we want to go up by 1 each time, so I plus plus. So the very first time, 0. Then we go to 1, then we go to 2, then we go to 3, all the way up until we get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Because that's the count. So 5 is the last index number, right? So once we get to 6, is 6 less than 6? No, then it will stop. All right. So what I want to do first is I want to just print them out to the console so you can see exactly what the numbers that we're dealing with. So I'm going to use the console.writeLine, and I'm going to do something a little bit different here. So I'm going to put in a text string, and I'm going to say the I value is, and then curly braces with a 0 inside of it. Okay, remember that's a text brace parameter. Now we're going to fill it in, so we're going to put a comma, and I'm just going to put the I variable. That's it. So this is the one that actually counts. I'm going to run that first because I want you guys to see the I variable, and then how we're using the I variable as an index number of the actual array. Of the list. So here we go. The I value is 0, the I value is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now on the next line, I'm going to put a console.writeLine, open closing and a semicolon, back inside of here, another text string, and I'm going to put the list item. I always want to call it array item. The list item is open closing curly braces with a 0. Oops, and there we go. And then I'm going to fill it in, so I'm going to come outside of it, put a comma, and now I'm going to call upon the list test item, open closing square brackets, and we have to put an index number inside of here, but since we don't want to hard code it to be just one of these, we need to use the I, right? So let me show you what we do if we hard coded it. Say I put a 0 in here, right? Well, then what I would do is every single time that it loops, it would always give me the list item is 4.5, because that 0 is hard-coded, and so it just gives me that first item. Now, if I change that 0 into an I, now what happens is each time it goes through, that I changes, and it increases by 1, so then we're actually getting the next item inside of the list. So at 0, the item is 4.5. At 1, it is 6.7. 2 is 8.9. 3 is 1.2, 4 is 2.3, and finally 5 is 3.4. Once we get to 6, 6 is not less than 6, so it stops, and that stops our loop. All right, what if I add another one afterwards? So I'm going to do it before the loop. Before the loop, but after I create, so I declare and define my list. So I'm going to say test list dot add. Remember, we can use any of the methods that we have because they work for any list, not just string lists. So inside of here, let's go ahead and put in maybe 3.456. So something we're going to notice. All right. So if we run that, notice it should look exactly the same, except now we have a I value of 6, and that one is going to be 3.456. Because remember, add adds it all the way to the end and the last one of it, so then the index is 6 of it. However, what if I wanted this at the very beginning? Well, that's not going to be add. That means I have to use insert, right? So not that one. Let me try test list dot insert open closing and semicolon, and I'm going to start it at the very beginning, so that's going to be 0, and then I'm going to put in 3.456. All right, so now when I run it, instead of being very end of the list, notice now it's at the very beginning because it took over the 0 index, so it pushed 4.5 down. What if I didn't want it at the beginning? What if I wanted it to be the second element? Well, second element has an index number 1 less than that, so that's going to be 1. So now it's not going to be the first one, however, it is going to be the second one on the list. So notice when the I value is 1, it is 3.456, because we're kind of shoving this number in right in between these two, and that pushes everything over here to the right by 1. Okay? Notice also that the loop is flexible enough so it will update automatically. Okay, so you can use insert, you can use remove, and you can do all of that. Now, I'm going to show you guys something fun. This only goes forwards through the actual list. All right, how to make it go backwards? All right, how can I make the list go backwards? And this is just going to be changing the for loop and only the for loop. All right. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the for loop we have above, paste it down here. And the things that I'm going to change is pretty much everything inside of here. All right. Now, instead of 0, remember 0 is the first index. I don't want to start there. I want to start all the way at the end. But what is the last index number? Well, the last index number is going to be whatever the count is minus 1. Because remember, we start at 0. So for the I want to start at test list dot count minus 1. Because that's going to be the very last index number. Now the test. Well, it's not going to be I is less than that count anymore. I want to run this, and I want to count downwards. So say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. But 0 is going to be the last valid index number because there is no index of -1. So I need to stop this when it hits 0. So I need it to run as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. All right, now we have the increment of change. Right now, we have I as the count, so say this is 5 or 6. Is 6 greater than or equal to 0? Yes. Right now it's going upwards, which is not what we want because we want it to go downwards. So instead of plus plus, let's change that to minus minus. So all we're doing is affecting how the for loop actually runs. So now start high, subtract 1 each time, and stop when we hit 0. Now when we run it, we're going to see the first for loop, which is going to be this one, right? So notice it stops at the I value is 6, 3.4. Then this is the second loop. The I value is 6. The I value is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. And then it stops when we get to the very beginning. All right. What else can we use this for? Well, going backwards and forwards, you can use that for any of the actual homework that asks you for that. But what else could we actually do with this list? What if I wanted the sum of it? How would I get the sum of the numbered list? Well, I would have to add them up one at a time. Okay, so what data type would it be? Well, it's going to be a double because these are double numbers. So double, let's put sum of list. Now before we had to add them up one at a time, which looked like this, right? Test list of square brackets of 0 plus test list square brackets of 1 plus test list square brackets of 2. And if you guys are getting bored of this, that's because this is not the best way of doing this, right? Because how many do we have right here? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now 7, right? So we'd have to have all the way up till test list square brackets of 6. However, what if I added another one in here? Test list dot add, and I'm just going to add at the end because that's okay. And I'm going to say 234.5, whatever we want it to be. Well, this one does not update automatically, so that is not going to be the way we're doing this, all right? So this is considered hard coding. So this is hard coding, and don't do it. All right. Instead, oops, let me put that as a quote or like a little comment for you. Instead, use the loop to add it up. All right, so now we're going to make the changes inside of here, but in order for it to stay, we need to create a variable that's going to hold the total. So we still need to do that. So that is going to be double, and I'm still going to call it sum of list. And I'm going to set it equal to 0 because I want to start with nothing in it, so 0, but not nothing. I don't want it to be null. I want it to be 0 so I can add to it. All right, now inside of my for loop, I'm going to change I'm going to redefine the sum of list, but I'm going to use it by adding in each of these individual elements. So I'm going to say sum of list. I'm going to use the assignment operator plus equals. Remember, that just takes whatever's on the right-hand side, adds it to what is the already existing, and then saves it back to itself. So I'm going to say add in the test list square bracket of I. All right. So the first time it loops, it starts with 0. Then it goes and gets the very first element in the array, which is going to be, oh, not that one actually. Oh yeah, it is that one actually, 4.5. So it's going to say 4.5 plus equals sum of list, which is 0. So now it's going to be 4.5. The next time it loops, it grabs the second one, which is actually now this one, right? So then it's going to add 3.45 to the existing 4.5, and it will continue to total it all up, right? But how do I see it? In order to see it, we just need to do a console.writeLine outside of the for loop. Now we could do it inside of the for loop if we wanted to see the sum growing each and every time, or if we wanted to see just the sum, we could do it here. So I'm going to say the total of all of the numbers in the list is open closing curly brace with a 0 outside of it, comma, and then we're going to put in sum of list. There we go. So let's go ahead and run this, and it should put out in between our two loops. And there we go. The total of all the numbers in the list is 264.956, which if we had more time, we'd actually take the calculator, go and add those up, but I'm actually fairly confident that that is correct. All right. Now, if you did want to see it actually grow, after you create this, you can always create this inside of here, console.writeLine, open closing, and I'm going to say the total sum so far is open closing curly braces with a 0. Outside of that, I'm going to put sum of list. Now, inside of the loop, this will run each and every time it loops. So it'll constantly print out the new total. Let's see what that looks like. And remember, we're just looking at the very first loop, so we're going to scroll back up. So we're going to say the value of I is 0, the list item is 4.5, so the total sum is 4.5. Next time it loops, I value is 1, the new element is 3.456, now the total sum is 7.956. So if you kind of look, 3 plus 4 is 7, 5 plus 4 is 9, and then 5, 6, so that's right. So 2, here's the new total sum. Then we keep going on until we get to the very last one, and that's what actually prints out after the loop. And from then on in our code, if we wanted that total, we would just have to use the sum of loops. Now, this was just an example using a double, but you could use integers in there, you could use decimals. You can use any kind of data type for your lists.